Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers sighting. The Lakers have a second center officially behind Jackson Hayes, adding Alex Len and waiving Christian Wood. The Christian Wood kiss of death on social media continues. The last two times he tweeted he was progressing and getting close to returning, he suffered a setback. And then the third and final time, he just said he's progressing and getting back to returning. He ends up getting waived within about 30 minutes. But you guys know the drill. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. So the Lakers add Alex Len, waive Christian Wood. And what does this mean? So this means that the Lakers have a second center officially on the roster, because remember, Christian Koloko and Trey Jemison are technically eligible in the regular season, but they are not eligible in the postseason, and they have a 50-game limit to be activated, not to play in, but to just be activated for a maximum of 50 games as two-way centers. So now the Lakers officially have a second center on the roster. They technically had, Maxi Kleber is like a 4'5", Markieff Morris is like a 4'5", but a real 7-foot center, it's Jackson Hayes and Alex Len. This is insurance for Jackson Hayes. So if Jackson Hayes, he struggled with foul trouble in the past, he's been much better with it lately. But if Jackson Hayes gets into foul trouble, and let's say the Lakers are playing the Nuggets, and Jackson Hayes gets 4 or 5 fouls, and the small ball unit isn't working against Jokic, then you throw Alex Len in there. So I almost view him as a third string center behind Jackson and the small ball looks, and then Len. But the Lakers didn't have that option before. So I do like that. I still think overall that expectations should be tempered with Len, and I'm going to get into why, particularly with his role over the past couple of years. But so I think moving forward, it's still going to be Jackson Hayes and then small ball, and then occasionally, based on the matchup or the context of the game, maybe some Alex Len for some size, some physicality. I think those are the two areas he helps the group in the most, is just being he's a 31-year-old, 12-year NBA veteran. He's 7 feet. He's 250 pounds. He plays with a certain level of physicality. That's a guy that you don't want to mess with. Like, similar, we've seen it with Trey Jemison in some of these garbage time minutes where he'll get into like scuffles and stuff, and people look up at him and they're like, all right, we're not gonna mess with that dude. Like, Alex Len is one of those dudes. He looks like a scary guy. Like, he and I mean that with the utmost respect in a positive way. So I think like that's a guy that adds, just like the Lakers have sort of remade the team from the beginning of the season, and I just think this group is much tougher, and they have an edge, and there's just a ferocity to them, and I think Alex Len fits into that. Like, he's a guy who's going to come in, set hard screens, take hard fouls, and just play again with a level of physicality and confrontation that I think the Lakers could use. And this also means to me that again, I mentioned Christian Wood, but like, it just felt like that was not going to be a thing this season. And I think the Lakers choosing to waive him versus choosing to waive a Cam Reddish or a Shake Milton, to me, just signals like they were not confident in what they were going to get from Christian Wood this season. So who knows? Maybe he ends up returning for another team and signs elsewhere. But I think this was the end of the Christian Wood chapter in LA. I think they were ultimately tired of waiting for the idea of Christian Wood to return, and they needed another center. So as for strengths with Alex Len, to go through it, he's 7 foot, 250 pounds. He is officially the biggest player on the 15-man roster, and that I think matters. Like, the Lakers have been looking for a tough defensive-minded center, and I think he fits the archetype, right? I'm not quite like, I don't think he's some defensive game changer. I don't even think he's likely going to be in the primary rotation outside of specific matchups, but I think he checks at least that box. He's a 12-year veteran, so there's an element of experience and leadership and familiarity with a lot of the players on the team. As I said, he's very physical. He's strong. He can block shots. His block rate is still solid. Solid offensive rebounder as well. That's probably his two. I just went through a lot of his film on synergy, and his two primary ways of scoring, really three, are like dump off passes, putbacks, and in the pick and roll, hitting him on the short roll, and he's got a solid floater. So I would say those are the three primary ways he's going to score. He's tried to expand out to the 3-point line. It's not really worked. He'll occasionally hit one, but he's also just as liable to airball a three or miss it badly. So I don't think that's quite in his repertoire yet. But primarily going to be a guy who's setting screens. Maybe I think he's sneakily, and I've probably overused this term with Big Ben, but I feel like he's a sneaky decent passer out of the short roll. Like, he can make some reads. So I think he could do a little bit of that, but primarily he's going to be a guy who sets screens, battles in the paint for offensive rebounds, occasionally gets some dump off opportunities from Luka and LeBron and Austin, and then also will occasionally get those floater passes, pocket passes leading to floaters. He's not much of a scorer though. And then defensively, from like a mobility perspective, I would say he's quicker than he looks, but he's not quick just in general. And he's much more of a drop coverage, like low post banger type big man than anything. So from a coverage perspective, he doesn't fit in with like the switching, versatile, fluid type defense that the Lakers have tried to play recently. Now let's get into the weaknesses, and they are going to be longer than the strengths. So I think the biggest weakness with Alex Len, and the biggest thing that gives me pause with this entire situation from the Lakers perspective, is he has not averaged more than 10 minutes, really more than 9. He's not been double-digit minutes in 3 consecutive seasons. So most backup big men, even the ones that are seldom used, kind of walk into 10, 12, 15 minutes a night. And Alex Len has been a single-digit guy for 3 straight seasons. And more specifically, looking at it, this season, he's only played double-digit minutes in only 7 games. Last year, that was only 21 games. And between this season and last season, he's played 20 or more minutes in 1 game. So for some perspective here, Christian Koloko has played double-digit minutes in more games this season than Alex Len. And Christian Koloko is a two-way center. And he's not played 20-plus minutes yet. I think his high is 18, so Len's got him beat there. But like from a role perspective, this is like very much a fringe rotation guy. And even looking at a couple of the guys I personally liked better in Daniel Tice and Mo Bamba, those guys have Mo Bamba has played, I want to say it's around double-digit performances minutes wise. Daniel Tice has only played single digits 4 times this season, and he's got another 30-something games with double-digit minutes. So just from a role perspective, like Sacramento kind of used Len as their third string center. And again, that's fine. But I guess my one thing with this is like, if Jackson Hayes gets injured or does foul out of an important game, I would if I'm the Lakers, like I'm almost operating as if I have to go small and not use Alex Len. I don't think the way he's performed the last couple of years is like a guy that, like, ideally with this spot, it's a guy you don't need to rely on, but if you need to rely on them, it's okay. And that's where I can't quite get there with Alex Len. Like, I don't think they're going to rely on him, and that part's fine. He fits that part. But if they do have to rely on him, I'm a little like concerned about what that would look like, because he just has not been very good for going on 3 years now, and he has not really played for going on 3 years now. In terms of additional weaknesses, as I mentioned, limited mobility from a pick and roll coverage standpoint. He's not a vertical threat. So looking at like there was several times Kings players tried to throw lobs for him, and he just would have to jump up and try to like flick it in or come down with it and then try to power back up. actually going through his offensive film, Christian Coloco blocked him multiple times for whatever that was worth. Like he struggled to attack Christian Coloco. If you can't tell, I think Christian Coloco like probably should have been this guy on the roster, but they chose not to do that. He fouls a lot, both offensively and defensively. He sets a lot of illegal screens, and he will hack guys on drives or at the rim. From a lineup data perspective, he had the worst on-off differential among the entire Kings roster. The Kings were 19.3 points per 100 possessions worse with Alex Len on the floor, 17 points per 100 possessions worse offensively, 2.3 points per 100 possessions worse defensively. So that's kind of how I view him, as like a major negative offensively and a slight negative defensively. That's kind of where he's at. And per estimated plus minus, which is for a lot of people arguably the best like catch-all advanced metric to kind of summarize a player's worth. He was in the 4th percentile offensively, 8th percentile defensively, and 1st percentile overall. So bottom 1% of all NBA players this season. So I just want to temper expectations of like, yes, the Lakers signed a 7-foot, 250-pound guy, a guy who's played 12 years, and he's had moments as a starter and as a key rotation guy, but he's really not been that for 3 years. And a lot of the data is pretty negative with him, whether it's his actual like on off with the Kings or just his own individual metrics. So I still think there's something there with the physicality and the size, and like, can he come in and play 8 to 12 minutes and like get a couple of offensive rebounds and block a shot and get a couple finishes at the basket? Like, sure. But based on like the Kings have needed, like, just sometimes I like to like take a step back and like look at the big picture of this. The Kings have needed like more defense. Like the Kings have been a team that has really struggled defensively, and they've tried to find that like rim protector type. And of course, Sabonis is an Iron Man, so Sabonis is always healthy. Sabonis plays a lot, and I'm sure that's a factor into why Len's minutes have been so low. But in theory, like what Len should be or what Len was is the type of guy that the Kings could have used, and they just basically have not used him for again 3 straight seasons now, and then they ended up trading him away. So I just want to temper expectations as to like what to realistically expect from Alex Len. I would not expect him to play a lot, and I would not expect him to contribute a lot. If there is a disaster scenario in which Jackson Hayes gets injured or is in foul trouble, you can break him out of the glass case and see how it goes. But I just want to be clear about like where he's at currently in his career, in again, the way that Sacramento has used him and the way that a lot of the data has not been positive. As for what's next, I think the Lakers have to continue to monitor the center market. If Larry Nance Jr. or Kelly Olynyk or Chris Boucher become available, I think they should waive a second player and add one of those big men. Outside of that, I think they should consider adding Jordan Goodwin and converting him from a two-way spot. Otherwise, I think the roster is probably set for now. But I think those should be the two things they monitor, is like, does a better big man become available, like a clearly better big man? And I would classify those 4 other options as clearly better. How do Coloco and Jemison continue to develop and play? I think those could also be maybe converting one of those two. And then also Jordan Goodwin. I really think all 3 two-way guys have a legitimate shot to like any of the 3 have a legitimate shot to get that additional roster spot if you waive one more guy. But that's my quick thoughts on Alex Len. I've been like, as you guys know who watched last night, I got word that this was likely happening yesterday morning and wasn't able to confirm it, but just started to do some prep on Len. So I've been watching some film, going through the numbers. And I think just to conclude before we get into the Q&A, like, I think it's a good move in the sense that like the Lakers needed to do something and they just needed another center. I would argue that like a Daniel Tice or Mo Bamba is better, have been more effective this season, have been used more this season. And in case you need to rely on those types of guys, like Daniel Tice has been a starter this season and really always been like a starter or high level bench player throughout his NBA career. He's not as big as Len, but I just think he's a better player. And so, but again, he might be going back to Europe. So I don't think he was. So in summation, I don't think he was the best available big, but I think he's a veteran. He's big. He's physical. He checks enough boxes, and the Lakers at least have that option if a disaster scenario happens. And with Christian Wood just not being available, like I would rather have Alex Len than Christian Wood at the end of the day. So I give the move, like I think it's a solid move, all things considered. They didn't have many great options. I would have preferred Tyser Bamba, and I also think they should try and get a better big if one pops up. I don't think he's the full answer here. But again, physical, tough, big, like it's about as well as they could have reasonably done outside of maybe getting Bamba or Tice. But let's get into the Q&A here. I see we got some super chats. Alex Merling, thank you for the super chat. More useful than Wood at this point. Exactly. Like I think they needed to add a big. Again, there's probably a couple bigs I like a little bit more, but including Koloko, I would actually put Koloko up there. I think Koloko is better than Len, but for whatever reason, the Lakers have not really viewed him that way. Samir Dude, thank you for the super chat. Chances Nuggets can sign Luka as a free agent to pair with Jokic and steal him from the Lakers. I would put that very low. I don't like, it's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. The team that I would say, like the dark horse team that's been out there kind of looming with Luka pre this trade was Miami, and there had been some potential Luka Miami like longer term buzz, but there also had been Luka and the Lakers buzz, and then he ended up going to the Lakers. So I would say I think that the biggest threat as things stand would probably be Miami, not Denver. Brandon Omeng, thank you for the super chat. Waive Shake, sign Goodwin, keep Cam for wing defense. That works for me. I think you can make a case either way. It seems to me that JJ prefers Shake over Cam for whatever that's worth, and I do think it's worth something because clearly JJ has had an input on the roster and how it's shaped and who's playing and whatnot. But he does have the Duke connection with Cam, so maybe he ends up like that ends up being a factor. The Lakers already traded Cam, so that could suggest maybe they go in that direction of potentially waiving him. But I think either one is fine to waive for Goodwin with how he's played the last couple games. And Chelko Ezorad Rezo, thank you for the super chat. Yo, Buha. I'm disappointed the Lakers never got the Mavs version of Seawood, and now they never will. Does Cam go next, or who? They're only allowed to waive two. Yes, they are only allowed to waive two, so they can waive one more player and then sign, again, either the best available free agent center that shakes loose, potentially convert Jordan Goodwin, or potentially convert Koloko or Jemison if one of those guys rises to a level where they feel like they could just use an additional center. I think it's between Cam and Shake. I would probably lean a little bit more toward Cam being the guy because Shake actually has 2 more years left. They're both non-guaranteed, but that could make him an interesting like throw into a trade in the offseason, just as like a minimum guy that can be waived. So I would say I would probably lean toward Cam a little bit more, like 55-45, 60-40, more toward Cam being the one that gets waived. But I think it's close. I don't really think it's a mistake in either direction. And yeah, they never got the Mavs see Wood. I think the lineup data with Wood, AD, and LeBron was really good last season. He had some really good performances, especially early on in the season. Remember when he was guarding Kevin Durant in those Lakers-Suns matchups early on. But yeah, he just has not been able to stay healthy. He played 50 games as a Laker in over a season and a half. RV14, thank you for the super chat. Should he have signed on a 10-day, not a full one? Ideally, yes, but based on his status as a 12-year veteran, I believe he was a former lottery pick, and the fact that, like, maybe one thing that I should have probably mentioned, and now that you bring this up, I'm thinking about it, is like he was supposed to go to Indiana. Then he backed out of that and is now going to the Lakers. So maybe he ends up playing a little bit more than he did in Sacramento. Like maybe he does end up playing 10, 12, 15 minutes a night as a typical backup center does. And the Lakers, it's like Jackson plays like 22 to 26 minutes a night. Small ball is like another 12 to 14 minutes. And then the rest of the time goes to Len. And you kind of split it like those three ways where Jackson basically plays half the minutes and then small ball and Len are the other half. So I think his status was above a 10-day guy where he already had interest from another team. And I don't think he would have been like, take the guaranteed money from Indiana or like the 10-day from the Lakers. Like you're going to take the guaranteed money from Indiana. So I think that was ultimately a factor here. Like ideally, yeah, just see how he looks for 3 or 4 games, but he's going to be a Laker for the rest of the season. The Notorious CRG, thank you for the super chat. No Koloko / Jemison. They've been actual teammates. I agree. And I think Koloko, like, it kind of reminded me like watching the Alex Len tape and seeing him try to score on Koloko and Koloko like jumping up and having verticality and blocking his shots or like altering his shots. And just like, I think Koloko's been solid. I think he's been their best among Jackson, Jemison, Koloko. I would even throw Len in there now. Like, I think Koloko's the best rim protector of those 4. And I think he's been the most disruptive around the rim. He has really good technique. He puts his arms up. He stays big. And I think he does a good job of contesting and altering shots. So I don't really get it. But the Lakers still have some flexibility of when they could convert them. They can convert them later in the season. So that's still an option. But I would have just converted Koloko over Len, to be honest. I think there's more upside there. Your boy Rich, thank you for the super chat. I watched all 2 minutes of Alex Len's highlights. LOL. Seems like he has good hands and can rim run. We are winning it all. He does have good hands. Rim run. So I will say I saw some Alex Len highlights from 2023. Like they showed some highlights of him against the Warriors in the 2023 playoffs. And I'm like, that's 3 seasons ago. That was not the 2023-24 season. That was not the 2024-25 season. Like he was a different player back then. So I don't know what highlights you saw. Rim run, I would say like loosely rim run. He's not a vertical lob threat, and he's not very quick or explosive. So like I think he does have good hands and he's got a nice floater game. And if he has enough space, he can finish like around people, but he can struggle to finish through contact. And again, is not really much of like a jumper or like donkey on people type guy. So I agree with the first part, the rim running. I think loosely you could use that term, but he's not like a Jackson or a Mark Williams type in terms of like, I would say like a Koloko again is a more athletic lob threat finisher than he is. Like he is relatively ground bound, but he's big. So that helps. Like honestly, in some ways he's kind of similar to Jonas Valanciunas, but Valanciunas is a better offensive player, better post game, better mid-range face-up game, better rebounder. But I actually like Len better defensively than Jonas Valanciunas. So I will say I give him the edge there. Jelko, thank you for the super chat. Jovan, any rumors or info on the Hornets appeal? Nothing new other than just it's very unlikely to be successful, and that like I don't think the Lakers are really worried about it. So I think the Lakers are going like I don't think this is going to be reversed or there's going to be a penalty. Karma Carl Baller, thank you for the super chat. As a shooter, what's the difference between shooting off the catch versus off the dribble when it comes to winning / affecting the offense? Or how does it affect how you view a shooter? I would say it's a really good question. And I like that you're asking a technical basketball question. It's not even necessarily related to the Lakers. I like these types of questions. Off the catch and off the dribble, I think are 2 different skill sets. And I think off the catch is, I would even throw in off movement as the third one here, because off the catch can be like a spot up catch and shoot situation, but it could also be running off of a screen or a dribble handoff or some type of movement or relocating to create the shot. So I would even throw in a third category. I think you need all of them, to be honest. Like maybe movement shooting is one that like it's the one that you can probably get away with not having, but you need guys who can shoot off the dribble. Those are arguably the most valuable shots in crunch time, where, you know, like having Kevin Durant in crunch time is a cheat code, because Kevin Durant, at the end of the day, no matter what, can get to that 16-foot pull up mid-range jumper, and he's 7 foot with, or 7 feet, excuse me, with a high release point, and he can create that shot basically with his eyes closed against any type of defense. And LeBron has his step back or getting downhill in the pick and roll. Luka has his own step back, and he could also get downhill in the pick and roll. So like having that ability to create off the dribble in terms of your own offense and self-create jumpers or shots, like that is arguably the most important skill for like every championship team has like one elite guy who could do that, with a few exceptions. But for the most part, you need a top 10 guy who could do that. And that's ultimately why I'm so bullish on the Lakers, because I think they have 2 top 10 guys that can do that. But that's really important. Then you need shooting, though, because I've talked about the importance of 3-point shooting in the modern era, where basically since Miami or since Dallas beat Miami in 2011, but you could also include Miami in that, every champion except for the Lakers and the Nuggets over the past 15 years has been top 10 in either 3-point makes or 3-point percentage in the regular season. And the 2020 Lakers had 2 top 5 players and the best defense of the league. And the 2023 Nuggets had the best player in the league and an awesome, like clearly the best starting lineup in the league at that point. So, and they shot well in the playoffs, especially against the Lakers. So like there are exceptions to that rule. It typically means you got to be giant and like, think about it. 2020 Lakers, AD, LeBron, JaVale, Dwight, they were physically imposing really all over the floor, but especially on the interior. 2023 Nuggets, Jokic, Gordon, MPJ frontline was really hard for most teams to match up with, and they were physically imposing. So unless you just have this like dominant front court that's physically imposing, typically you have to have a certain level of shooting around your stars and be either a high volume 3-point shooting team or a high, quality efficiency 3-point shooting team. So the shooting off the catch is a big part of that. And it is a big thing that and that's where it was funny kind of seeing some it happened to Rui a couple of times where he was not ready for Luka passes. And that's going to be something that the guys have to get used to, is like Luka can, there was one play where Luka's like looking to the right and he's just kind of dribbling casually. And then he just jumps up and throws a bullet pass to Rui in the opposite corner. And it wasn't an on-target pass to JJ Redick's point and to Luka's point, but Rui could have been more ready for that. And it almost was a turnover. And I think that's just going to be like the process of learning how to play with Luka. And just like he can fire those passes where like not many, like I think LeBron can make that pass. I think James Harden can make that pass. Like Trey, maybe it depends on like how the defense is guarding him because he's so small. Like there aren't many guys who can make that type of pass against like a set defense and just casually like no look bullet pass to the corner. Jokic, of course, can do it too. I'm trying to think of like all the people that could do it, but there aren't many. So I think that's kind of something that the Lakers are going to have to kind of figure out within their offense. But in terms of how it affects winning in the offense, like shooting is a premium. Shooting is a huge part of contending, in my opinion. Again, looking at recent NBA champions, the Warriors, the Heat, the Celtics, they've all been really good 3-point shooting teams. And I think that's a key ingredient. I think it affects your spacing. It affects your offense. And I would, in terms of how I view shooting, I would say the guys who can do it off movement That's the toughest one. And JJ's talked about that, about how he's like, I'd never practiced catch and shoot threes. I only practiced movement threes because I knew in a game that was how a majority of my shots were going to be. No one was going to let me get open. I was going to have to fly around screens. I was going to have to relocate, and I constantly had to be moving to create open looks. So I think the movement shooting is by far the hardest, especially because you also get tired and your feet, like it's because catch and shoot, you just have to literally get your hands and feet ready. And as long as it's not a bad pass, you can just go into your shooting motion. Off the dribble, you'll see it with LeBron, right? Like LeBron has his move where he kind of looks away. He puts the ball on his side for a second, and then he rises into that pull up or step back, kind of no look three that he takes. And a lot of that's like rhythm and repetition and routine and just kind of doing the same thing over and over again, and your body mechanics getting used to it. Whereas movement, like you might have to jump off 1 foot. You might have to be leaning a certain way. Like you don't know. It really depends on how the defense is playing you and the size of the defender, their length, and like just how much time's left on the shot clock. Like there's all these factors that play into movement shooting that I think that's by far the hardest part. And that's why I'm like, there are teams that could win the championship or compete without movement shooting, but it is something that's valuable. And if you do have that, I think it takes your offense to a different level. So I hope that answered that. RB14, what's next? Promote Goodwin or sign another big? I think it depends. Thank you for the super chat. I think it depends which big becomes available. I think if it's a Larry Nance, Chris Boucher, Kelly Olynyk, I think the Lakers will seriously consider signing one of those types. Daniel Tice, I think, again, depends on what he does. And then Goodwin, I think he probably needs a little bit more of a sample size, some more reps doing what he's been doing. But if he continues to play the way he's played, I think he's going to have a real shot to make the roster. ROY, thank you for the super chat. The Lakers created One Direction with LeBron being the leader, Luka, AR, Dalton, Braun, and Len. I like that. They got the boy band the boy band look there with LeBron as the lead. Dante M, thank you for the super chat. They should have brought back Dwight Howard over Len. Jeez. So I'm gonna stay consistent in my Dwight Howard take, which is like he has not played since the 2021-22 season. So he's not played in even, like I was talking about Len not being a rotation guy. Like Dwight Howard's not played it even longer. So I would prefer Len over Dwight, but again, I have relatively low expectations for Len. But thank you for the super chat. Bubble OG Bill, thank you for the super chat. When will CK/Trey and JG prorate to be able to sign? That's a good question that I don't know the answer to. I believe the Lakers have until the end of the regular season to make a decision on any of those to convert. So that doesn't answer your question necessarily, but that's more of a, I'm not in the weeds enough with the cap stuff to know that, but I could try to find it out. But so I wish I had a better answer for you. The Notorious CRG, thank you for the super chat. What was with the first quarter calf wrap for Luka? Well, he is coming off a calf strain injury, just missed 6 weeks with that. So I think that was more just a precautionary, trying to keep it warm and tight, wrap. But I don't think it was anything crazy. Diving back into the chat. BC, Vanderbilt shooting 14.3% from 3-point range. Yeah, it's not been good, and I expect it to be better, but it is ultimately a limiting factor with Vando, especially next to Jackson. I don't really think you could play two guys who, like, again, I've made this comparison. Like, it was one thing with AD when AD was a low 30% 3-point shooter, and defenses still respected him a little bit, and he could still make them pay if he stepped out. It's another thing when it's like two guys in Jackson and Vando who like literally can't do it. But Vando's, as I said in my Buha's block storylines, like Vando's been awesome, and yes, he struggles to shoot, but He's been a great rebounder on both sides of the ball. He's made a huge impact defensively, huge impact with the small ball lineups. Vando has been a welcomed addition. Sam Davison says, Len is just a big body to throw on Joker. He probably won't play much. 100% agree. Golden says, Capella would be the best realistic center in the offseason. I'd have to look at, let's see. I'll pull it up here for you guys. Let's screen share this. So we're on Spotrac and looking at centers. Okay, so Brook Lopez. I love Brook Lopez. I know he's regressed a bit and he's about to be 37, but Clint Capella, Miles Turner. Lakers could pay Miles Turner $30 million, right? They don't have cap space, but Naz Reid has a player option for $15 million. He's an interesting one, but I would suspect he opts out and gets a bag from someone. Steven Adams, Mo Wagner, though he's coming off a major injury. Horford, Looney, Drummond, Dwight Powell, DeAndre, Tristan Thompson, Taj Gibson, Mason Plumlee, Christian Wood, Thomas Bryant, Daron Sharp's restricted, Jackson, Charles Bassey, Jericho Sims, Paul Reed. Not the most, not the sexiest list of big men. Among that group, Lopez and Capella on shorter deals would be interesting if either one was interested in like the non-taxpayer MLE. Miles Turner and Naz Reid, I think, will be out of their price range. Steven Adams on a cheaper deal would be interesting. Mo Wagner, depending on how he rehabs. Looney, depending on how he continues to play with Golden State. He's only 29. And then it gets really grim. I don't really like the rest of the group. So Sky Falcon 5 says trade for Claxton, sign Na would be a great offseason. I wonder how much Na is going to get. I would suspect his floor is, he's making 4.5 this year. I would suspect his floor is the non-taxpayer. I think some, like he's probably, he kind of reminds me, and it's funny they're on the same team. He kind of reminds me value wise as like a Dante DiVincenzo. So I think he'll probably get non-taxpayer from somebody. And I would trade for Claxton. I think I was looking at it and it's like real. I think I might have actually did it. We went through the exercise on a stream, you know, maybe last week or post, maybe it was post Mark Williams. It was post or pre Mark Williams, but whatever. That's, yeah. Now everything's post Mark Williams. Claxton, I like. Duran, I like. Kessler, I like. And then I don't really see many other centers that like kind of fit what they need that would be available. C2 Cents says hopefully Kleba can return the season. I mean, that's a sneaky addition if Kleba comes back. Like he's a stretch five who has some mobility defensively. So I do think he could give you some of the Christian Wood offense, like spacing as a stretch big. Defense is more mobile, not the rim protector or rebounder that Wood is, but I think he can be a much needed addition. Rubens, Alves, thank you for super chat. My fear is that the supporting cast is peaking too soon and the regression will hit in the playoffs. I hear you. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like you always want your group to play as well as they can. So I don't, of course, like we'll see how the next 30 games go and we'll continue to reevaluate and analyze. But I think everyone's just like they're just hitting a nice groove and you have that throughout the course of a season. And one thing that actually Bill Simmons has said a lot that I really agree with is like most championship teams or teams that are contenders, like show you in the regular season with a sustained stretch of a lot of championship teams will have 10, 12, 15 game win streak or stretches where they win 15 of 18 or 18 of 23 or whatever, and just have like these really dominant stretches. And I think the Lakers are amid one of those right now, having won 6 in a row, 12 of 14, and is Rui and Gabe and Vando and DFS and Jackson all going to play like this for the rest of the season? I doubt it. I'm sure there will be some lulls. I'm sure there will be some valleys, and this team, Lakers will lose games again. They're not going to win every game for the rest of the season. But if this is largely the average, the median outcome of their performance moving forward, like I think the Lakers would take that, and I think they're a really good team. So I hear you. I mean, certainly there will be some level of regression in the playoffs, because the playoffs are very much like feast or famine, and some guys sink, some guys swim, and it really just depends on the player, right? So I look at a guy like Rui, right? Like and Rui has been a guy that this point last year I was clamoring, and he just entered the starting lineup at this point last year. I was saying like Rui needs to be starting over Taurean Prince, and I was beating that drum, and I was just saying like Rui's a better player than Taurean Prince. The lineup data backs it up. He's a better fit with the starting group. And he, believe Lakers went like 18-6 to close the season with Rui. And I think post putting him in, they were like 22-8 or something. But then in the playoffs, he really struggled against Denver. And you saw like the Rui that was there for the last 30 games was not the Rui. I think he averaged like around 7 points a game, and he was like missing layups and open threes, and like he just was not the same player in that Denver first round series. So like that's just an example. I mean, D'Lo had an incredible final 2 months of the season, then really struggled in the Denver series outside of game 2. So and then I think a guy conversely like Austin, who was still putting up solid numbers, but then I think D'Lo probably outplayed him overall to close last season, and then Austin was much better in the Denver series. So it's like the playoffs really expose kind of who can play in the biggest moments and how good they are in those moments. So certainly I think some of these guys are going to be played off the floor, not shoot as well, not defend as well, be targeted, whatever. But I would ride this current wave with the supporting cast and just see how long it can last. And of course, there will be some level of regression at some point, but I think that they're in a good spot. Josh Ramirez says the Lakers are stupid to let Christian Wood go. Should have been Cam Reddish. I would say that the one thing with this is I only think if Christian Wood was right and he really is going to be back soon, then I would entertain this argument. If Christian Wood is just still in the abyss, which to my knowledge he kind of is for now, like if the dude was not going to come back, you just needed to use that roster spot on someone who is going to be available. That's ultimately what I come down to. But they could still waive Cam Reddish and sign another player. Bradley Stewart says he's a lob threat, Len. I mean, I just went through all 60 of his offensive possessions this season, and I did not see that. So maybe in the past, but not this season. Teddy20BG, or HE, sorry. Thank you for super chat. Luka, LeBron, and AR will make any big man look great. Len and Hayes could have career highs going forward. It's a good point. I think especially for Hayes, this is true. I think Hayes and Len are at different points in their career. Hayes is 24, Len is 31. Most role-playing big men start to kind of age out of the league around this point. So I certainly agree with the Hayes part of this. I agree with the Len part to an extent of like Luka, LeBron, and Austin are going to create better looks for him than De'Aaron Fox would. And so maybe like, I don't think, let me take a step back. I think they'll get him good looks. I do not think Len is going to play enough to put up career highs. And even I'll pull up his finishing here because, for example, like Mark Williams, Jackson Hayes, they are in the high mid to high 70s in finishing. Len is at 72%, which is pretty good. The thing that's actually not quite at the same level as them, so maybe that goes up to your point. The thing I really like about Len, though, is that floater shot. He's shooting 54% in between 3 to 10 feet on those non-paint, or non-restricted area paint twos. So I really like that ability from Len, and I think he could be force-fed. I just ultimately don't think he's going to play enough to put up career highs, but certainly they will squeeze every ounce of like what they can get out of Alex Len offensively. I just think like he's a little bit older. He's not the same finisher he was. Like even from last year, he's dipped 8% shooting at the rim. He was shooting 80% at the rim last year, 72% this year. I just think he's slowed down a little bit. And look, I could be wrong, and we'll see. We'll see, right? Ultimately, but I just went through the film. I went through the data, and this isn't. And this is what I'm seeing on it. Catching up here. Guy Gemekaseg, thank you for the chat. Reports say Lakers are looking into the Australian team center. I believe that was Sam Vecini of The Athletic, who I referenced him talking about, Will Magne from the Australian team. Yeah, so he suggested they sign him and that he's going to have NBA interest, but it's not, I haven't heard him necessarily linked to the Lakers outside of that. Jet. This is my larger point on Len. He says, Len is a bruiser. Y'all got to stop hyping him up so much, though. That's like, if you have realistic expectations for Alex Len, I think he'll be fine as hard screen center, finisher around the rim, occasionally hit some floaters, some putbacks, and like defensively, he's going to contest shots, foul, decent defensive rebounder or solid defensive rebounder. But he's not, again, this is a guy who's averaged single digit minutes in 3 straight seasons. So like I haven't even, he's played in 36 games. He's blocked one shot or more in 11 of them. He's blocked a shot in less than a third of the games he's played. And he has, again, 36 games. He has grabbed 4 or more rebounds in 6 of those 36 games. So like, he's just not grabbing a lot of rebounds. He's not blocking a lot of shots. Like, I think expectations need to be tempered here. The Snow, do you think the Hornets will get anywhere with their claim to the league? Also, how are the current vibes with Dalton? Sorry if you've already answered. Realize I've been doing that to you. All good. I don't think Hornets are going to get anywhere with their claim. Dalton, saw him walk out yesterday, and I would say the vibes are a little down. I think he's going through it a little bit, and it's understandable. And like, people have been reacting or overreacting to the whole situation in terms of like him being upset about it. So like, as I said on X, and I said last night, like JJ said that they met and that his read on the situation is he wanted to give Dalton some space, and he understands if he's feeling whatever he's feeling. And like, I think it's understandable. Dude was 23, dude's 23. He's a rookie. He got traded. Then it got nixed, and now he's back with the team that traded him. Like, I'm sure there's some level of just like a lot of mixed emotions with the whole situation. So he's likely going to play Wednesday, and we will likely talk to him Wednesday. So we'll have an update on how he's feeling and what the vibes are. But I'm sure it's been emotional, and him not playing and being out for personal reasons. Like, I think it's clear how Dalton is feeling, and I think it's totally fine that he's feeling that. Young Lido says if we had a legit center, we would have a really good shot at winning it all. That's why I liked Mark Williams in that trade. But yeah. Joseph with a kind disagreement here. He says, sorry, Jovan, I disagree with your take. Coloco's too light. Mo Bamba sucks. He didn't do anything with the Clippers. Tice isn't big enough. Boucher is too light. Len was our best option. Well, Boucher isn't available currently. You could argue Coloco's too light. I mean, if you want to argue that Len is the best option for what I think Laker fans want, which is just like a big bruiser banger, sure. I think he's technically the best of these guys. But where I would disagree, like Mo Bamba played more for the Clippers this season than Alex Len did. And again, I think like, look, I'm open to being wrong. I'm just telling you the facts, which is like this guy has barely played for a Kings team that has needed a defensive big for going on 3 seasons now. I watched his film. I looked at the data. It's all like not that positive. So I don't think any of these guys are like that good. I do think Coloco has potential. I actually think, I mean, Boucher's a weird one because he's not really a center. He's like a big forward who can block shots and rim protect. So like, I agree with Boucher. I think is worth a shot if he's available, but he's not like, he's kind of a weird, he almost fits into like the small ball look. Tice also would. I just think Tice is straight up better than Len, and like he's played starter rotation minutes for New Orleans. Bamba, I'm not even high on. I don't even really like think Mo Bamba's that good. I just think he's a better rim protector than Len, and he's just played more and he's younger for whatever that's worth. Like Mo Bamba, you could fight me on, and I would not necessarily disagree. I think Coloco's better. Like, is he better at banging in the post? Maybe not. But I kind of think this kind of goes back to the Valanciunas thing of why I was against the Valanciunas thing of like, that's like one specific part of it. But those types of bigs, I think can like, I'll just going back to the Lakers film with Len. The Lakers targeted Len. Like that's always the funny thing, especially with I look at it through the Lakers lens of like when they add a player that they previously targeted, like when they added Russ. And you go back to the 2020 playoffs, and they are putting centers on Russ and ignoring Russ. And then 6 months later, they trade for Russ. And it's like, do you not remember the 6 months ago when you had Kyle Kuzma and Markieff Morris and AD or whoever on Russell Westbrook, and you ignored Russell Westbrook and you put that guy in the paint and just said, let Russell Westbrook shoot? That's the same thing they did with Alex Len. It was high pick and roll, targeting Len, Austin and D'Lo going at Alex Len, and they were successful. So I mean, if you really want to make the case Len's the best option, like I don't inherently disagree. I think Tice is a different class of player. I think Tice is better. I even if he's smaller, I just think he's better. And you know, but Bamba, Coloco, Boucher, like they all are lighter than Len. Len's bigger, but I think they're all more versatile defensively, personally. Maybe love Hayes. Hayes has been good for us on a minimum contract. He gives us amazing value. Yeah, Hayes has outplayed his contract, and I suspect he will continue to start and play like mid-20s minutes. And to your point, Joseph says, yeah, I get you. Tice is better, but I think we need a bigger body. I mean, the Lakers could still add I think they needed to replace Christian Wood with the center. I would like to see maybe one more move to get another big option. And I think they're cooking at that point and like just go forward. You could also convert Jordan Goodwin, but I would like to see like one more move. Teddy 28G. I highly doubt Dalton K hates the Lakers, just a bit upset from what exactly. And I never said he hates the Lakers. I'm not saying you said I said this, but like I tweeted out what JJ said, and then people were like, well, Dalton's soft and this and that. And it's like, no, it's just imagine if wherever you work, your work traded you to a different branch, a different company, and you had no say in the matter. And then all of a sudden you're kind of processing that. And then a couple days later, you get told, oh, no, wait, false alarm. You have to go back to your original company. And it's just anyone, it's human nature. Like anyone would feel a type of way about it. I don't think it's that crazy. I'm not even saying like, I don't think he's mad at the Lakers. I think it's a lot of emotional highs. And like JJ talked about getting traded himself when talking about the Luka situation and everything. And it was like, the first time he was traded, he said it sucked. Like he did not see it coming. It was really emotional. He needed like a day to process it. And then eventually later in his career, when he got traded again, he was like ready for it. And it kind of hardens you to that. But like the first time you get traded, especially as a rookie, it's not like a fun experience, right? So throwing the lies, do you still feel like DFS should be the starter over Rui? I do. And I know that that's a controversial opinion for some, and some agree with me. I feel like it's a very polarizing topic right now. I just think that, and look, this is not even this is more about skill set. And it's not like, I think Rui is playing well. He's shooting the ball well. He's been cutting well. Like Rui's been playing at a high level. I just think when it comes down to it, when you look at I think if we're ranking in like the lineup in terms of like indispensable or not even indispensable, but let's just say like Luka and LeBron are going to start. I think Austin, with the way that he's playing, he's their third best player. He deserves to start. Again, eventually, maybe they reevaluate that and decide to stagger those three a little bit more. But I think Austin is at a level where he's going to continue to start. Jackson, by default, has to start at center because the Lakers need to start a center. I think they'll play a lot of small ball, but I don't think they're going to start games like that. So you kind of have four starters in Penn. And when looking at what those, like the offensive ceiling with those four is incredible. You got elite playmaking and shot creation with Luka, LeBron, and Austin. All those guys can play on and off the ball. You have a certain level of shooting there. And then you have Jackson as a rim runner, a lob threat, a screener, short roll playmaker, transition threat. So offensively, you have a lot of optionality and a lot of flexibility. Defensively, you are a bit limited, right? Like, so Luka is a guy that Dallas tried to hide. The Lakers tried to hide him last night. LeBron has typically been a guy the Lakers have tried to hide. There have been certain matchups where they can't hide him, and LeBron's defense has been pretty good lately. But like in general, the Lakers have tried to make him be more of an off-ball helper guy. That's also the same position Dallas tries to put Luka in. Austin, LA's with Max inserted into the starting lineup. LA reduced Austin's defensive responsibility. Now he is going to have to be a point of attack guy defending the best backcourt guys. And then Jackson, has been much better defensively over the past like month or so, but is still relatively foul prone, is not a good defensive rebounder, and is slight and just can be bullied. Like I go back to the Steven Adams matchup where he just eviscerated Jackson and played him off the floor and was like moving him like a rag doll. So like the biggest centers can push Jackson around. So looking at like what the Lakers need with that group, I want a guy who does not need the ball and can just space the floor and be a low usage guy next to LeBron, Luka, and Austin, and just like a complementary connecting piece offensively. Defensively, I need like the most impactful, like I ideally need a wing stopper, a point of attack guy, the most impactful defender I can get. Like ideally, whoever this fifth guy is needs to be the best defender on the floor, because I just think if Jackson, LeBron, Luka, or Austin is your best defender on the floor, I think you have a clear defensive ceiling there that's not that high. So this is where we get to DFS. Like which guy fits more of that? Rui can do Rui's not much of a connector. He's much more of a, like, I'm going to get mine type guy. And yes, he's a good spot up shooter, good catch and shoot guy, good cutter, but he is involved within the offense to a certain extent and not as much of a lower usage guy. Like even last night, he had a higher usage than Austin. And I think there's a certain expectation with him offensively with how much he's going to be involved. Defensively, DFS is just straight up better. Like, I don't think it's a conversation. I don't think it's a competition. Like, if you just watch the game and look at the data, DFS is much more of a wing stopper, point of attack guy. Look at who they've put on Steph. Look at who they put on Tyrese Halliburton. Look at who they put on Jordan Clarkson. Like, it's been DFS. It's not been Rui. So I just think, and then I know the counterpoint. People are going to look at the box score numbers. And it's like, it's not about the box score numbers, because the game is not just offense. If you wanted to say, like, go outscore teams 140 to 130 every night, then sure, start Rui, play him more than DFS, like, lean into that. But I think in terms of, like, what the Lakers need from that fifth spot, the player I'm describing, and I think that logically fits there, is much more DFS than Rui. And that is my DFS Rui tangent. I'm due for one every show. C2 Cents says Fax Buha. Piondi says it would put Rui as a power forward too. And yes, that's Rui. Like, this is the other thing. This is not an indictment of Rui. Like, I feel like this even goes back to the Austin D'Lo conversation of, like, it felt like anytime I praised Austin, it was like a slight at D'Lo, or anytime I criticized D'Lo, it was like a praise for Austin, and vice versa. Like, two things can coexist at once. And I think Rui's been playing really, really well. I just don't think Rui's a wing stopper. And I don't think that should be a controversial opinion. Like, Rui is more of a power forward, and he's more of a stretch big who can space the floor, pick and pop, catch and shoot, can punish mismatches, and he's a really good offensive player. But there are certain defensive limitations there. And I think we could acknowledge that. And it's not a slight at Rui. It's just like what his skill set is. And he has certain weaknesses, and his weakness is the thing that the Lakers need from that spot, in my opinion, the most. I think they need defense more than they need the cutting or the shooting, especially when factoring in DFS has been shooting 40% on threes basically all season going back to Brooklyn. So it's not like DFS is a scrub who can't make. He's had multiple games making multiple threes. He's not as high of a usage or as high of a volume guy as Rui, at least as a Laker. But I would rather take a slight step back offensively and maybe lean more on Luka, LeBron, and Austin and have a better defense than be like, okay, well, we have this embarrassment of riches offensively, but now defensively, we're putting Rui on Lauri Markkanen, and Lauri Markkanen's getting going, or he's having to guard a guard, and now that guy's beating him off the dribble. Like, I just, that's again, my second tangent on top of the tangent. Is that Yos Nico? Hi from PR. What up? Plinka will get Williams for less in the new negotiation with Charlotte, and the NBA will be part of the process. Bomb emoji. That is interesting. I would assume that the Lakers and Hornets are probably done negotiating for quite a while. Maybe that there's a renegotiated price, but these types of things, I think there's some pretty bad blood with both the statement that the Hornets put out and with them opening up and invest. Like, if the Lakers were kind of just, okay, this was kind of a waste of our time, but the medicals are bad, we're nixing this, we're moving on. The Hornets ignited it a little bit with putting out the statement, calling them the other team, and then launching an investigation. So I kind of think that the blood is bad on both sides right now. Edub 1906, is it pretty clear that Wood had no chance to return this year? I wouldn't say no chance, but I would say slim chance, slim to little chance. Mr. TD says we got beef with the Hornets. Apparently now, yeah. Kevin Cambridge, Jovan, you looking forward to that Drake and Party album on Friday, brother? I am, right in time for Valentine's Day with my wife. Should be a good time. I am excited. Joseph says, aren't Tyson Rui similar players? No, Tyson's a center. He's a small center, but if you look at, I'll pull up his, we could go through. Let's go through it. quickly. Then I'm about to wrap in 5 minutes. Let's look at Daniel Tice's basketball reference. 6'8", 245 pounds center. So this year he started 9 games for the Pelicans. He's averaging 16 points a game. He's been a decent to below average 3-point shooter, largely below average. Let's look at his per 36. Let's look at his per 100. So I would say he's a good, like, let's just compare him and Len for a second. And then I'm going to switch to the Len tab. So Len per 100 is less than 10 points, basically 10 points a game, 12 rebounds, 3.5 blocks. Tice is at 13 points, 13 rebounds, a block and a half, 5 assists though for Tice. I think Tice, between the two, I would just say, like, I think Tice is a better rebounder. He's a better passer. He's more mobile defensively. He does take, like, he tries to shoot a little bit too much. That would be one drawback. Also his age and the size. But Tice, again, has started almost a quarter of the games he's played in for the Pelicans. They've been a mess, granted. I don't think they anticipated him even starting that many. But he's at least, as I said, he's played 38 games. He's played double-digit minutes in 34 of the 38, whereas Alex Len has played double digits in 7 of 36 games this season. So, like, that, and I know minutes aren't everything, but it does kind of show you, like, how his previous team viewed him and used him. Like, if Alex Len was some monster rim protector, screen setter, paint force, I think he would have been playing a lot more in Sacramento. I don't really know how else to put that. Karma Carl Baller, thank you for the super chat. Would you rather be locked in a room? Wait, what? Would you rather be locked in a room for an hour with a sweaty Hulk Hogan / Trump or Russ? I assume you're saying Russell Westbrook. Also, what's your ideal 6-man? Do you feel the Lou Will Jay Crawford overrated? You just asked me, like, 3 wild questions in a row. I don't know how to answer the first one, to be honest. I'll say, like, is this Russell Westbrook? Is this Russ the rapper? I think Russell Westbrook and I would need to hash things out. So I'm going to say Russell Westbrook and I get an hour alone, and we'll see if I make it out of that room alive. Ideal 6-man, I think Rui is the ideal 6-man. I think move Rui to the bench and make him the 6-man. Do I feel Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford are overrated? No, and the reason I don't feel they're overrated is because I think those are both guys who could have complained and whined, and, like, their careers could have gone a different way in terms of them insisting that they started, and like, they could have gone to bad teams and been like, yo, we're just going to start and be like the bad team, or, you know, good stat, bad team guys, and put up 25 to 30 a night, play 35 minutes a night, and just be on crappy teams. But they accepted the roles that their respective coaches had for them, particularly in Atlanta and with the Clippers, for both of them. Yeah, I would say primarily those two situations. But, like, they accepted, hey, there's going to be some nights I don't play as much. There's going to be some nights I don't close, but I'm going to also have a certain level of freedom with these bench units, and I'm going to buy into this role. So I think those two guys, like, my favorite types of players are guys who have self-awareness and, like, acknowledge their limitations and buy into a team first role. And I think Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford, despite their games not necessarily suggesting that, based on like not always playing defense, being very shot hungry, not being very efficient, I think from an actual like role perspective and their perspective on their careers, both guys made a lot of sacrifices and bought into the greater good of their respective teams. Now, they never won championships, but they were a part of successful teams that did go a round or two, deep into the playoffs. And I think they were big parts of those teams. So I don't think they're overrated. Noel says, what are you going to do when Hulk Hogan runs wild on you? Or Hulk Hogana runs wild on you? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Did not mean to ignite a political chat in the... tried to stay out of all that. Jet says, if anything, they are underrated. I agree. If it's Russ the Rapper, then I definitely pick Russ the Rapper. But if it's the Russ I think you're talking about, then I think he might just have to punch me in the face a few times. Oh, man. This is a fun one. Piondi, who's the best defender from our centers lineup? I think the best defender from the centers lineup is actually not healthy in Maxi Kleba, but among the healthy people, I think it's Jackson. I missed a super chat. Daniel Kim, thank you for the super chat. DFS's defense is needed for the starting lineup, and Rui's offense is needed for the bench lineup. Balance is key, and that's a compliment to Rui on his offensive potential. This is a great point. It's one that I made, and you made it very succinctly. Like, I think right now the Lakers' three best defenders, DFS, Vando, and Gabe, are all coming off the bench. And I think their four best offensive players, obviously Luka, LeBron, Austin, and Rui, are all starting. And I think you need a little bit more balance there in terms of putting one of your three best. You could even I would even entertain Vando or Gabe starting over Rui, just from like a balance perspective. I just think you need another plus defender who could take on those matchups starting and then slide one of the offensive guys to the bench. So as you say, I think balance is key. And I think the starting lineup tilts far too offensive and the bench tilts far too defensive. And I think that swap, specifically of DFS and Rui, checks the boxes and helps both lineups. CG, Lakers chances against Dallas. How does Dallas defend Horns? Well, their chances against Dallas are pretty good because AD is out for a month. Daniel Gafford just got injured. Derek Lively is injured. Dallas is in shambles right now, to say nothing of what's going on off the floor. So I think I would pick the Lakers. I mean, even if they were healthy, I think it's more of a conversation because they'd have such an interior advantage with AD, Lively, and Gafford going up against Jackson and small ball. So I think even with Luka and LeBron, of course, it's a better duo than AD and Kyrie. But I think that the interior advantage would potentially tilt it to where Dallas at least has a shot in the series. And maybe it ends up being like a 6 or 7 game series. But I would still pick the Lakers. Right now, if I tentatively had to pick it, I'd probably say Lakers in 6 without knowing home court or whatever. Though as things look, it looks like Lakers would probably be the home court team. And then how does Dallas defend Horns? I mean, I think it depends who you're running Horns with. If you're defending, if you're running Horns with LeBron and Luka, I would assume they're going to have PJ Washington and Clay. I don't know who's going to guard who. Is it maybe PJ on? They've tended to put, or I think in the previous matchup they put Clay. Like Clay in Golden State and Dallas has defended LeBron some. So I could see Clay being on LeBron, Luka, PJ being on Luka, and Kyrie being on Austin. And at that point, I think you really attack Clay with LeBron, try to get LeBron on the move. And I also think you could probably attack Kyrie with Austin, but I would look at the LeBron Clay matchup as the one. I also think you try to look for ways to get AD away from the basket, and that's where going small can do that. The problem is if it's Jackson Hayes and if it's Vando, I don't think AD is going to care. If it's Rui at the 5 or DFS at the 5, that's maybe where you can stretch AD out a little bit. So I would say I'd have to know like who's in the horns action and who's available for Dallas. But I guess if we're saying full strength, I think they're probably going to switch at least the Austin. They're going to switch with Luka and LeBron. They might switch with Austin too, depending on like, I don't think you don't want Kyrie switching onto Luka or LeBron, but you might just have to do that. And then I think they're going to cheat a lot with AD. Now, I'd not be surprised if AD ends up being a roamer helper and tries to disrupt everything. And obviously we know he can do that. So that's a bit of an X factor. Couple more here from one from Kenneth Smith. Thank you for the super chat. Still can't believe our team with Luka. I'm ready to take on anybody, Nuggets, OKC, Cavs, Boston, etc. I hear you. I think Luka gives them a shot against anybody. Like Luka and LeBron as a duo, 2 top 10 players. Honestly, LeBron's been playing like, I think, a top 5 player recently. If you have 2 top 5 players, you can beat anybody regardless. As long as you have a competent supporting cast, you could beat anybody. And I think the Lakers, I'm really excited to see what the next month looks like with Denver 3 times, Milwaukee a couple times, Boston, New York, Houston, Memphis, Houston a couple times, Memphis. They got some tough games coming up, and it's going to be a nice barometer of where this group's at. But I hear you. With Luka, I think they got a shot against anybody. X, thank you for the super chat. You think we have a good chance now against Denver? I do. I think I would say, so it partly depends on like Murray and MPJ, because those guys have just shot disproportionately better against the Lakers than they do in normal situations. So if those guys continue to just like make every shot, that obviously kind of changes the dynamic. If those guys regress to their more normal shooting, I think that opens up the doors certainly for the Lakers. I think it kind of comes down to like Luka versus Jokic and who could be the better player in the series. I think Luka can outplay him. At the same time, I think Jokic was already cooking the Lakers with AD. Now there's no AD. So I would not be surprised if Jokic averages 35, 15, and 12 against the Lakers and like just eviscerates them at a higher level than, because AD at least could like block his shots, occasionally disrupt him. Like AD's obviously one of the best defenders in the league. He just didn't really have the strength to bang with Jokic. Now it's Jackson Hayes, or it's LeBron, or it's Rui, or it's Vando, or it's DFS. And like, I call me crazy. I like Anthony Davis defending Jokic better than any of those guys. Although LeBron has probably defended him the best of anybody. You can't really ask LeBron to defend him for 40 minutes. I think that's just too much. But Luka gives the Lakers a different look because they've often put Aaron Gordon on LeBron. And I actually think Aaron Gordon is one of the best LeBron defenders in the league, but you can't put Aaron Gordon on both. And if you're putting Russ or Christian Brown or whoever on Luka, you're not putting MPJ. Luka is going to cook that player. So I think ideally, like you kind of need 2 Aaron Gordons to match up with LeBron and Luka, and Denver doesn't have that. So I think Luka could just go crazy in that series. Also, the offensive, like the playmaking that the Lakers are going to have, and the ability to put pressure on the rim, and Jokic still, improving as a rim protector, but still not being like a good or like dominant rim protector. I think they could attack him more now between Luka and LeBron. So I think it's a combination of the Lakers' ceiling rising and Denver's floor decreasing, and probably ceiling decreasing a little bit too. So I think the Lakers match up better with them, and I think they have a real shot to beat them. I reserve judgment until I see it. Like I want to, like, I do acknowledge Denver's been a side in the Lakers' thorn for 2 years now, and I don't want to like just say because they have Luka that's not going to continue. I want to see it, but I do think the Lakers are better equipped. Anthony Gray, ironically, Mitch Kupchak what is this? Well, thank you for super chat, but what is this in relation to? I'm not sure. X says, yo, Jovan, love you. Man, give me a shout out, please. Here is your shout out. I love you too. All right, catching up in the chat. Did I say the Blexican says a side in the Lakers thorn? I meant a thorn in the Lakers side. Listen, I basically have not slept for like 2 weeks now, so I apologize for any misspeaking here. Oh, I see. You guys talk about Mitch Kupchak. It's actually the Hornets GM is they have a new GM. They have Jeff Peterson is their GM, and that's who, when Rob talked about negotiating with Charlotte, he name dropped Jeff Peterson specifically. So they've they've moved on. Canadian Laker says Jovan's human too. I am human. I try to give you guys the best content possible and never misspeak, but it does happen occasionally. I've also not eaten today, which is its own thing. I've just had a bunch of coffees and no food. I'm running on fumes here, but enjoying this. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I was not expecting to go live today, so I appreciate you guys, but I see we got a super chat in Serbian. I'm not going to try to read this and put my Serbian on blast, but I appreciate the super chat from Young Mad Dog. But I'm going to wrap here. I appreciate you all for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed this Alex Len breakdown. Overall, I think as long as you temper expectations, Lakers have a new 7-foot, 250-pound center who can bang with guys in the post, protect the rim a bit, rebound a bit, finish inside. That's what they needed. Again, I think that expectations should be lowered. He's not going to be a high minutes player. I think ideally they add one more center, whether it's a two-way guy or one of the other guys that gets bought out. But step in the right direction. I think the roster is better today than it was a couple hours ago because Alex Len is healthy and available. Christian Wood is not. And that's ultimately the biggest thing here. But that will do it. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back Wednesday night after Lakers Jazz. And I posted a community note. For those who are in LA, I will be going, probably hosting or not hosting, but going to a bar to watch the All-Star game and would love to do a Buha's Block meetup for whoever is in LA. We could grab a beer or two, shoot the shit, and just hang out, watch the All-Star, we'll call it exhibition, not necessarily a real game, but new format this year with 3 teams. So if you are in LA, would love to meet you, would love to see you all. And we'll probably be in the mid-city area because that's where I live. So I will probably just up front keep it kind of in my area. But if you guys are free and want to meet up, please let me know. Would love to meet as many of you as possible. So shout out to the late night gang. Went a little bit earlier than normal, but it's late somewhere. Just like it's 5 o'clock somewhere. It's late somewhere. And Anthony Gray says no Dwight Howard. It's Alex Len. But I will talk to you all very soon and reply in the community note if you want to meet up in LA on Sunday. Talk to you all very soon.